The first cycle of abuse would be considered love bombing. Now, I know that's a word that we often use a lot today, but in case this is your first time hearing about what love bombing, the word love bombing is basically just a tactic that people use to shower you with affection. In terms of, it can come through help, affection, gifts, praise, etc. It comes with a manipulative underlining motivation, I should say. So it's very manipulative. So it's not just someone who just loves you and is so like has so much affection for you that they just want to show you through showering you through gifts or helping you or all those things. Like, this is actually from manipulation. And so again, like I said, with a narcissist, even when it appears that they're helping others, really and truly the motive is self. So they're really doing it for their own selfish gain, selfish motivation, even when it looks like on the outward that they're actually helping and assisting and loving others. Then there's devaluation, which basically is where they start to withdraw once you're hooked, and then they get bored or they gain superiority over you through your flaws. They dispel you once they actually hook you in. And so this is part of the devaluation. So this is kind of to make you feel inferior, to you to kind of second guess yourself, kind of have that low self-esteem, not really understanding yourself as a person. And so this is again where they get bored, so they do it, or it's because they want to be superior over you. So if you feel lower about yourself and you feel inferior, they get a chance to be that superior, self-centered being. The next tactic that they use is to discard. So now this is where they finally get rid of you or they push you away, and this is called reverse discard. So basically, it looks like you're the bad guy and not them. So again, because a narcissist, the whole point is for them to come out one unscathed, but also come out looking great, right? For them to be glorified and magnified. They, even though they're the ones that's discarding you, they do it in such a way that makes it look like you left or that you chose to walk away or that you gave up instead of them. So it's almost like they reverse engineer it so that they become the victim or that they look better and they don't look like the bad guy and it's you, right? And so some of this can even be through like gaslighting and things too, where they will, tell people, that you were super sensitive or you were this or you were that, that you were unstable in your emotions or, anything to just, again, make them look good and make you look like the bad guy. Then there's this another tactic called hovering. So it's basically like a vacuum. So they, again, after they've discarded you, so these are going in order. So remember, we first started with love bombing. So this is how they get you. They hook you. Then they devalue you so that you feel inferior. Then they discard you. But then there's a thing called hovering where, again, they vacuum you right back in. And so, again, they don't ever discard you so that you're way over there, like you've moved on with your life in such a way that you would never reconnect. They're going to discard you at a good distance so that when they're ready to, again, suck you back in, which is the vacuum effect of hoovering, they can pull you right back into their lives when they still find value with you. That's the cycle that they continue. And then once they do that, it starts back again with the love bombing. Then it goes back to the devaluation. Then it goes back to the discard. Then it goes back to the hoovering. And it continues like a washing machine, just continues to go in cycle after cycle after cycle. So when you think about those four things happening, and there's more, but I haven't really gone into all of them, but just think about just those four things happening over time, what that does to a person's belief system, their self-esteem, just their views on people, themselves, God, just the world. There's a lot of breakdown that happens from a psychological, spiritual, emotional standpoint. And so that's why I said it's so dangerous when you actually know someone is actually a narcissist. It's dangerous to, stay in an encounter with them because, again, like I said, there is a breakdown that happens. And yeah, like I said, it all repeats all over again. And there are, like I said, there are tactics within those cycles of abuse that they actually use. And some of them are gaslighting, like I mentioned before, which is making you doubt yourself or making you doubt what you think you see or you hear or you feel. They lie, which is this is what they do to avoid accountability at all costs. Like they literally do at all costs. Like they rarely apologize. Then you have withholding, which is intentionally withholding what they know you want or need. So that I think will fall under like a devaluation and discard part of it. That cycle, I feel like that's where they can withhold, because again, that's the whole point. It's almost like I'm loving you to hurt you, to love you again to hurt you, right? So that's where you get from the withholding, which, as we know, is abusive. So if you have people that do that on purpose, that withhold, whether that's like withhold emotionally, they do the silent treatment, or they, withhold anything that they know you need when they have the power to do that, you are definitely dealing with a level of abuse. And so don't ever second guess that part of it. Then you have the monitoring. So this is where they want to keep tabs on what you're doing. So this usually will happen in the discard phase, which is like, again, they'll dispel you out just enough that they can still have access, or they can still kind of keep tabs again to make sure that if you are of value still, they're going to suck you right back in, because again, all of it is for self. Then you have the future faking, is what they call it. And this is where they talk about all the amazing things you would do together, all the things that that you might have said that you wanted, that they promised that it's going to happen, but they never make it happen. So this is where people speak all words, no actions, right? And I can't tell you how many times I've actually gone through that, to the point where I think now it has caused me to be so distrusting of people in what they say, because I've just been so used to hearing a lot of, like Jamaicans would say, sweet talk. And you hear all the good lyrics, like they call it, where it's like you got all the great things that you can say but no action to back it up. And so I think I've been very conditioned to wanting to see people's actions more than even what they say. But of course I like to hear the affirmation part of it, though, what you have to say. But I think that has really caused me to be like super, um I don't take the weight on words. So even in compliments, even in, promises, even in, I guess honor and praise, I take words more lightly because of the fact that, again, I've been in this. And so I've seen where people have said a lot of things and didn't, and never backed it up. And I went on their words and hung on their very words, and then realized that like you were just literally, again, being fooled and future faked. So yeah, so then there's also breadcrumbing, which is when you withdraw or get ready to leave, and then they give you just enough attention or time to keep you. This is where like sometimes they don't always discard you fully, but like let's say for instance you were, saying that you need communication and the person is just not communicating. And so you're like, you know what? This is not going to work. I'm going to leave. How they'll breadcrumb you is right when they see that you're like, oh, you're about to leave, or you're really serious on not like continuing this. I'm going to give you communication to hook you back and stay. And then when you stay, I go right back to not communicating. And so that's like the level of breadcrumbing to keep you. Just like how you would do like, birds when you see them put like breadcrumbs on the street. And so they also use control, which we know what control is, and they do that in every aspect of it, whether that's like emotionally, physically, psychologically, all of the things. Then you have the power dynamics, which is where they prefer to be superior and they have power over you. And this is again due to insecurity. So they can never allow you to have power. They have to be superior and in power and in control, because again, they're super insecure. So if they ever gave you that, that would ruin their whole foundation of like what they're trying to actually do, right? And then you have something else called stonewalling. And this is when you communicate issues within a relationship with them and they shut down and refuse to communicate. And this one, I think, has been in friendships, especially that I've had in the past. This one has really gotten under my skin. And it's so interesting because you would think that, again, the whole point is thinking that you're in a relationship or friendship with someone, that there would be a concern or a care to want to communicate when there's issues, right? Because that is the point of any relationship or any friendship or any partnership. you want to communicate at all times. You don't wait until it's like detrimental or it's bad that now you're like, we're running the therapy or we're running to like salvage this. It's like if you communicate even in the smallest things, you kind of diffuse the bigger things, right? And so I've had friendships where this has happened, and when you want to communicate, let's say it's like, I'm not feeling reciprocity, or I'm feeling like every time we make plans you're canceling, or any little thing, and you want to have that conversation. I've had people who actually literally refused to communicate, like literally refused to communicate, and when they did, it was major gaslighting. And so like I realized that was one of the things that I kind of realized as I kind of just looked over previous relationships, friendships with narcissists, and I just was like, it's very unhealthy. And at the time, I think you're more drowned in the hurt than you are realizing that, oh, this is what's happening. Like you're actually like this is like you're being discarded, but in a way that makes you look bad. And I didn't know about like the actual in-depth cycles of abuse that a narcissist did. But now just looking at like the tactics that they use, like I was just like, yeah, this tactic is like is super hurtful because I think you're stunned and you're shocked at the fact that like, oh, this wasn't like by the time you get to this, it's like this was not a friendship that you thought. Like you were the only person thinking you were friends. And so I think this is where like some people can get really I think you could break people to a point where they no longer, they have a bitterness towards friendships or they don't want friends. And this is why I think sometimes you have that saying of no new friends, because we've gotten to this part where it's like I don't even want to deal with like the dramas and the intricacies and the distrust that I got to deal with people, because you just can't imagine that like folks will really pretend to be your friend or will string you along almost to only feel like, oh man, like it was just me this whole time, like you actually weren't even like considering me a value, or you didn't consider me as a friend. It was really for your own selfish ambitions and desires. So yeah, so this one is one that I think for me, like all of them are really crazy. I've dealt with all of them for the most part, but like I think this one was, I think, the most hurtful, because then as the person on the receiving end of being stonewalled, you don't get a voice, right? It's like you don't get to express your gripes and the things that you feel, that to advocate for yourself, or to at least just say like this is how I feel. And then you also don't get that respect to say, okay, I hear you. Maybe this is my perspective, or maybe this is my reasonings, and it's not what you think. It might be a different view. It might be a wrong view from your standpoint. But you don't get that respect and you don't get that voice. And so it's almost like you kind of you're walking in a room and all of a sudden this brick wall just like drops right in front of you, and then you just hit your head, right? You hit your face right in the brick wall when you were en route to like walking down the street. Like that's how it feels when it comes to like the stonewalling.